This is Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars with Trevor Long and Stephen Fennick. Thanks to NRMA Insurance and Uniden.
Thanks for pointing that out, Stephen. It's really
Literally
great.
pointing it out.
Greatly appreciated. And we do the show, Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars, thanks to NRMA Insurance, a help company helping Australians for almost 100 years protect the things that matters most to them. They are one of the largest insurers of electric vehicles in Australia. And Uniden's smart dash cams are helping you protect what you love as well, because it's that peace of mind, Stephen,
Got an EV,
that you
get a dash cam. Get the Uniden award-winning dash cam.
If you don't have an EV yet, get a dash cam. Like if you've got a car, the peace of mind that comes from knowing that you saw something cool and got uploaded to Dashcam Australia, or if you have an accident, the peace of mind of knowing that when your insurer says, but can you prove that? You can say, yes, I've got video. It's great.
Easy.
It's great to be able to tell your side of the story. Now, Stephen, we've got a lot coming up on this show. We're going to talk about EVs and fire safety, okay? Yep. A hot topic on the interwebs. And solid concerns from a lot of people. Yep. We're going to talk to someone who actually knows this space and has data to prove it. We're going to take your calls as well. If you're in the market for an EV, we've got someone on the line that is in the market for an EV. So we look forward to finding out what questions or concerns they have. You can get in touch anytime, 0477 657 657. But Stephen, you've taken the beautiful beast in for a service.
I have, yeah. It was, I've got to say, it was an interesting little experience. It's the first time I've put my Mercedes EV in for a service. Now,
having served a Tesla for many years.
Tesla for 5 years, and I think I only had that service in 5 years twice, and that was at their behest. They said, no, you don't need to come back till later. Yeah. And before that, I was a Mercedes driver where, annually you'd have your what we call your $2,000 car wash, which is the service.
That's a very
and
good
they clean your car. So in this time around, it was my service A with the EQE. And I went in and dropped the car off. 3 hours later, I get a call, ready to pick up. And I remember looking at the itemised, when they give you the itemised thing of what they did to the car.
Yeah.
And there was some couple of little interesting entries. And I said, how do you base this list? He goes, no, it's because of your model of car, then we do the service relative to that model of the car. Mm-hmm. And then we work off that list.
Yep.
On that list was change engine oil.
Oh, my Lord.
Replace engine oil. Check spare tyre pressure.
No spare tyre on the EQE?
I don't have a spare tyre. And guess what? I don't have engine oil either. And so I've paid, it was a $700 service, right? Service A. And so I've called back the guy. Then I sort of looked at it. I just paid on the day, and I looked at him thinking, I'm going to ask about this.
Yeah.
And I called back, and the guy called me back, and I said, look, I'm just curious because I've paid you. Like some of the things I did in the service was check interior lighting. Okay, great. Or check the boot that it closes.
Well, that's good in your case because it didn't open for a bit.
That's right.
Check it opens for me, will you?
I asked him. I said, mate, there's no. Did I pay for engine oil change that I didn't need? Did I pay for you checking my spare tyre that doesn't exist?
You're a stickler. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I wouldn't have read the bloody thing.
I said, look, he goes, no, every service is based on the model that you drive. So in my case, the EQE, so that service is then scheduled. I said, well, shouldn't that list not include those irrelevant things that shouldn't be on that list?
Yeah.
Because
they're opening themselves up to your very argument.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you just let it slide, but other people would be like, "Well, I want a breakdown of the now the $700." Well, because if there was 20 minutes allocated to checking the engine oil, I want that money back.
There you go. And look, it was, and I think initially quoted me as $780, and I ended up paying $700. But still, that's $700 for, I reckon, a service that would have taken them 20 minutes. And I asked, because that was service A, and he said service B. I said, what's service B involve? He goes, we changed some filters, and I'm thinking, okay, well, there's a lot of that stuff I can do myself. So my approach to this is a car company that's been around for a while, where their normal servicing of a petrol vehicle, how does that apply when they do the EV service?
And I think it's, in their defense, it's an evolution of their systems as well. Like check engine oil is probably just by default put on the thing because every car should have it, right? But I think the biggest challenge here, and there's people that have probably done this analysis online, is Tesla have nailed this part of the after-sales experience, which is they don't service it unless it needs it. Now, I've paid up front.
They cancelled
my
first one. I called 1 year anniversary of me getting my Model S, and they said, how many Ks on it? I said, 8,000. They go, well, your brakes are fine. we're cancelling your service. I just booked it at reflex action.
Yes.
They said,
Yeah,
don't need
yeah.
it.
Well, the Cooper, I got serviced and then I paid for the upfront 5 years because it's just cheaper, right?
Yep.
And I regret doing that now because I'm kind of thinking I actually wish I could just get my local mechanic to do it because really what needs to be checked is the brake discs,
Well, it's
the brake pads,
brake fluid,
air filters,
coolant,
air filters.
some coolant I think is there.
I'm not sure what coolant there is in the car, but there might be.
See, you're just
air conditioner.
They're taking their word for it, you know.
Yeah.
And the other part of it was recharging your air conditioner. Your
Because we
gas
talk
and
about the cost of
Yeah.
an electric car being higher than a traditional, but then you realise the cost savings.
running costs are way lower.
I calculate we're at about $3,500 a year easily, possibly more on petrol savings.
Yeah.
So in theory, a Tesla owner knows that their service costs are quite low.
Yeah.
Because see, the traditional car model is you make your money
Sell
in
your
servicing.
car, make your money on the service. Exactly.
And so Tesla's business model has never been built around that to the point where they're just making their money up front.
Well, that's the reason why I question it. And, mate, I've been in the Mercedes-Benz family. I took a bit of a break with the Tesla, but I've been in the Mercedes-Benz family for 20 years. And so I know how it works. And the service, how the servicing works, it's a revenue stream for them. And, of course, you need the service, of course. They had to check, my tyre wear and the brake pads and all that, of course, which is what has in common with a petrol car. But he did tell me, he goes, look, that same service on a petrol car would have been $980. So he was trying to tell me that you actually got a cheaper service, despite the fact that...
But that's the right answer, though.
Yeah.
That's the good answer.
Yeah.
Okay,
There
so
you
if
go.
it was just an E-Class...
Yeah.
It would have been
more.
900 and something because we would have done those things.
There you
So
go.
interesting though, and it's a look.
But read the fine print.
Read the fine print.
Read the fine. You
And-
might
and
be
I
paying
think-
for something you don't need.
I think critically,
Yeah.
if it's a real tight financial decision, have that conversation with other owners about
Absolutely.
the cost of ongoing ownership of the car.
Well, I think that's an important part of the research, isn't it? We're all happy and excited when you get the car, but those other running costs and other little things like what happened if I get in one accident? Is it easy to repair?
Yeah.
Those sort of things should be in the back of your mind if you are looking at an EV. Running costs, and if things go pear-shaped, can this thing be recovered and repaired?
Yeah. Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars, thanks to NRMA Insurance and Uniden Smart Dash Cams. We'll be back after this talking EV fire safety. So a couple of weeks ago, I feel like it was last week or maybe a couple of weeks ago, I don't know. But
Lost track of time.
I got a couple of messages from a mate of mine who was sending me all these information. They were screenshots. They were photos from like a presentation. It felt like I was getting exclusive insights. It was about fire safety and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was chatting with some friends about this recently, and they said, "Oh no, that's Emma at EVFireSafe." I said, "Oh, who's that?" And they said, "We should talk to her." Oh, well, that's what we're doing. I want to talk about EV fire safety, what the fire departments are doing, and essentially, what are the risks as well? Because it's one of the common questions. We're sitting here trying to advocate, but also educate on EVs. A lot of people have questions and concerns. So
well, I think there's a lot of people. You call them narcs, call them whatever you like. That sort of joke about the fact that EVs, and they say they catch fire, and they're talking more out of just misinformation. They don't know. It's why they're saying
100%.
those sorts of things.
So let's try and unpack it a bit. Emma Sutcliffe is on the line from EVFireSafe. Emma, g'day.
How you going?
Yeah, really good. So I'm pretty sure it was you presenting in these photos I was sent, and it was presentations about fire safety around EV. So let's just keep it simple and start with, what does EVFireSafe do as a business?
Sure. So I started the company back in 2018. So I'm an operational firefighter down in Victoria, and I accidentally burnt my first electric vehicle in a bushfire. I left it in the wrong spot and it caught fire. The battery didn't catch fire, but the car did, and that's what got the thought processes going. And I was doing a project with the Department of Defence at the time, and I got chatting to them, and they very kindly gave me a bit of seed funding to go away and have a look at these incidents and how do we manage them from an emergency response perspective. Mm-hmm. And so all these years later, we're now we're still funded by Defence to research EV battery fires and emergency response, and now we work globally. We've got a global team. We also have recently started doing consulting, so we consult to private companies around the world in the airport, mining, military, kind of space, shipping. We're doing some training on board ships next year. And we're also, in 2025, we're doing training as well. So we've kind of expanded quite rapidly.
Wow. Right. I'm curious, go back to that fire, your own car. What sort of car was it? And when you say the battery didn't catch fire, is that part of the remarkability of the story, to say essentially the car burnt around the battery?
Yeah, correct. So 44-degree day, howling winds, and it was actually a fire started on purpose, unfortunately, but it was racing in towards the town of Little River where I live. So I was out of town, so I raced back into town with my gear in the car, and actually left the car at a police checkpoint, but left it on kind of grass, which was dumb. And and of course, when I got back to it 9 hours later, the car was burnt out. But no, the battery didn't become involved. And actually, what the early data tells us is an EV on fire, if an electric vehicle's on fire, there's only a 25% chance that the battery is actually involved. And by the battery, I'm talking here the high voltage lithium-ion battery. So just because an EV is on fire doesn't mean we have a battery fire. Most commonly, it means we don't have a battery fire at all.
What sort of car was it?
Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. It was my first.
Hybrid.
I loved it. I felt so bad. Yeah.
So in the work you've done, so like anyone attending an EV fire, you've created this knowledge bank for handling these different situations.
Yeah, correct. I mean, we talk to fire departments all over the world, and we've got a database of incidents. So we track real world incidents, and we go, okay, well, we've been able to study and verify. I think at the moment we're at about 500. We're just under 600 electric car battery fires globally since 2010. Now that won't be all of them. It's just the ones where we can track them. We can get some details, but most importantly, we can confirm that they actually occurred, because what we see a lot of, and there was a great example a couple of years ago, the screaming headline in the mainstream media was Tesla catches fire and kills the family cat and burns down a home in Sydney. Actually, it had nothing to do with a Tesla. And a Tesla was parked there 2 weeks before and got picked up on Google Street View, and someone put two and two together and came up with 10. And so we see a lot of that. So we verified that these incidents happened. So we're sitting at just under 600 electric car battery fires. And when I talk about these are all cars that plug in. So plug-in hybrids or full electric.
Which sounds like a big number, right?
Yeah, that figure isn't – you said it's globally since 2010. Is that right? So that figure is really –
Correct.
It sounds like a big number until you get the full perspective on it.
Look, the number that we've been able to verify is quite low. There are about 40 million of them on the road. But as I say, that won't be everything. They're just the ones we're able to study and verify.
And what do you anecdotally say to people? And let's be clear, we are not looking for EV positivity here. We're looking for EV facts. Yeah. So what do you say to people who say, oh, yeah, but EVs catch fire, or EVs, there's EV fires all the time? Like, is it as simple as saying, no, there's not? Petrol cars have fires as well, but does that data exist, and does it sell the case for an EV in any way?
Look, I could spend my entire life just rebutting stuff online, but our remit, there's so much rubbish out there, seriously. But our remit is to support emergency response, which is one we take very seriously, obviously, and most of my team are also operational firefighters. So we can draw some comparisons. For instance, in Australia, we've just been able to verify the 8th electric vehicle battery fire. We verified that because we took possession of a car that came off the road down here in Victoria in March, and we actually pulled the car apart and we opened the battery pack, and we could verify thermal runaway, which is the technical term for a battery fire, actually occurred. So we've had 8 in Australia. Of those, the leading causes there are high-speed collision, or in one incident, a car actually ran over the top of an 18-kilo chunk of metal that was lying in the road. So
which is going to hit into the battery right underneath the car.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Correct. And probably, let's face it, probably would have set fire to a petrol or diesel car as well. Especially at 111.98 kilometres an hour, which is what it was travelling at. Okay. We've got 3 electric vehicles that have gone into thermal runaway because they were parked in a garage, and the garage burnt down around them. Had nothing to do with the car.
Right.
Something else set fire to the garage.
The fire, right? Yes. So
Correct.
And then okay. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. We've got one arson. That was on the Gold Coast. That was our very first one. And then we've also got one that's currently unexplained. And this one's interesting because it's the only one where the vehicle was connected to charging at the time. It was out in the street. Charging was in Sydney. And the people that owned the car, their neighbours, called O because they could see what they thought was smoke filling the car. So firefighters arrived. One of the firefighters opened the door of the vehicle thinking it was a cabin fire, but it was actually the off-gassing. So as batteries go into thermal runaway or they catch fire, they off-gas. It's kind of primarily hydrogens, but lots of nasty things in there. But in an enclosed space, they could become explosive. So as the firefighter opened the door, it actually caused a bit of a localized explosion, a small flashover. He wasn't wearing his BA at the time, his breathing apparatus, so he suffered some minor burns. That one, we believe, is down to a fault in the battery pack, so a manufacturing fault, but we're waiting for verification on that. Yeah.
So if
by comparison, oh, sorry.
No, you keep going.
Just quickly, by comparison, we don't have, believe it or not, there's no national data for petrol and diesel car fires in Australia. But in the financial year 2022 to 2023 in New South Wales, just Fire Rescue New South Wales, not New South Wales Rural Fire Service. Fire Rescue New South Wales attended, I think it was 2,970 car fires in petrol diesel cars.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
Well, that would include cars that are set alight after a crime, probably too. So it's a tough thing to.
Everything.
No one's pulling apart every one of those cars to do the work that you're doing on the EV space. So it's tough.
I noticed so we all know, Trevor and I both drive EVs. We've got the little EV blue triangle. It says EV on our number plates.
Perfect.
So that is so when say in the unlikely event of an EV fire
or a crash, just generally,
what does a firefighter need to do? You mentioned BA equipment. So what do they need to have with them to
that's different that you need to help them with?
So look, there are all kinds of products coming to market that are aggressively marketed at emergency crews and the general public to say this will help you manage an EV incident. And a collision obviously is far more common than fire. In fact, we're seeing an EV in the salvage yards. We work very closely with the salvage yards. We see a written off EV at least once a week around the country, but we've only had 8 battery fires. So very, very firmly, what we say to emergency responders when we train them is you need to be considering your new hazards and risks around electric vehicles in a collision. Because if you think about EVs don't have any engine noise, and I'm sure you guys have driven some fast EVs. And my colleague Dan and I drove a Model X Plaid last year in Norway. It's like 0 to 100 in 1.7 seconds. It's crazy fast. But if you imagine that that's involved in a collision and we're approaching the vehicle, we're looking for that blue EV triangle on the number plate. It's super, super important that everybody has that. But if the driver's unconscious, suddenly wakes up and we're standing in front of that vehicle and the driver puts their foot in the accelerator, we can be toast pretty quickly. So it's hazards like that we need to get our heads around. Yes, we need to talk about battery fire. Of course we do. But to be honest, we're not doing anything too different to what we've been doing for 100 years with petrol and diesel cars. It's just a new space we've got to get our heads around.
It's absolutely fascinating that part of the thought about training here, I would have thought it's just, how do you put out a battery fire? How do you put out thermal runaway? But actually this is a different vehicle, and you may not know that by the simple press of an accelerator, it's going forward at you. So
don't stand in front of it.
It's a knowledge thing. It's a awareness of it's a spatial awareness thing as much as it is managing the actual fires themselves. You quickly, before we let you go, that you talked about shipping, and I think that's a fascinating space because again, that's one of the I would say broadly it's an online myth, but there are potentially some facts to it where there's ships that have gone on fire, and we've seen I remember a Mercedes. There was one where they took a Mercedes out on a forklift and dropped it in a hole, looked like a skip bin full of water, and it took days for it to go out, and all these kind of things. Is it about understanding how to ship these vehicles slightly differently, potentially, for the companies involved, or is it more about the awareness of what to do if it goes wrong?
It's both. So the only verified electric vehicle battery fire on board any kind of marine vessel, actually, is our very first incident occurred in 2010. It was a converted Nissan Qashqai that had been converted to electric. and the owner used a homemade charging cable to plug it into the power socket on a passenger ferry. Yeah.
Right.
So,
it's like the same as that
right?
story in Victoria a few weeks ago where someone used an international adapter into the wall and then a cheap-ass cable to the car. The car was fine until they sparked a fire at the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Correct.
quite amazing.
Yeah, we do have so there are a couple of other incidents. There was the Felicity Ace, which is a car carrying cargo ship that caught fire. It had about 500 EVs on it, but unfortunately sank. So we won't know what role EVs played in that. Then we've got the Fremantle Highway, which is didn't sink, thankfully, and that's probably where you saw that video of the car coming off and being put in what's called in the Netherlands a dompel container. And that is a tactic that we're going to see used here in Australia in future. But it hasn't been, there's certainly evidence to suggest that electric vehicle batteries played a role in the intensity of that fire, but it hasn't been verified. Like we can't hand on heart go, yes, it could. And we need to remember as well that while we've got lithium-ion batteries in electric vehicles, in our modern petrol and diesel cars, you've got massive amounts of plastic now. They're huge cars compared to what we used to 20, 30 years ago. So firefighting any vehicle these days can be really tricky.
But just
Correct,
finally, Emma, bottom line, there's been a lot of little misconceptions and myths about the safety of EVs and fires. Would you agree with that? That sort of they've been unfairly tainted with these sort of myths?
I would go a step further to say there's malicious misinformation out there, and I know of several people who make money off making everybody believe that these things are going to kill us all.
Are you referring to people on YouTube, Emma?
I might be referring to some people on YouTube. Yes.
I know who you're talking about.
And look, it doesn't help anybody. And I think that there are two issues at play here. Yes, the misinformation has taken hold, which is a real shame. And as I say, we're a small team. We can't spend our time debunking this stuff online. We just need 10 people full time. So what we focus on is our core business, which is training emergency responders. We do release data, and I'm about to release new stats for Australia with the 8 incidents, so everybody can see what's actually what's actually caused those incidents. But I think that the second part is that we get confused. We hear about lithium-ion batteries in e-bikes and e-scooters and vapes and drones and this kind of thing. And people get confused between the two. Our lithium-ion batteries in our cars, anything road registered, have to be crash tested. They have to meet ADR. They have to be, the regulations they have and standards they have to meet. Correct. E-bikes, e-scooters, vapes, you click a button and they arrive on your doorstep. They're subject to nothing, and they can be very dangerous. And we've had 4 fatalities in Australia due to e-bike and e-scooter battery fires. So far, touch wood, that's the end of it. And regulation and standards are starting to be applied, but everyone gets very confused between the two. And I keep shouting into the void that what's in a Tesla is very, very different to what's in your e-bike. And it's far better protected. It's got an excellent battery management system, all of those things. And we need to get away from this idea that an electric vehicle is the same as an e-bike. So I think that confuses people as well.
Good on you, Emma. That is, it's great insight, data-driven and backed insight. And the thing I have great respect for, Emma, is that you are a frontline worker. This is not someone who's gone, this is a space I could get into. This is someone who is working in the space, and you're training and helping the people that will have to deal with these things as the world evolves and the technology is changing. As you said, a petrol car is different. It used to have wood panels and now it has plastic. It used to have real leather, now it has vegan leather. I don't know whether any of those things are different, but it's all different, and that's what matters. So we respect the work that you're doing, and hopefully you're getting the support, and it sounds like you are, and hopefully that continues for you at EVFireSafe. And obviously we look forward to hearing more from you and keeping people aware of exactly the data that you're uncovering, because it's useful for all of us. Whether we might want to have those little battles online, you don't have to. We will, or just in our own conversations with people who are in the market for an EV. Emma, really great to hear from you. Great to have a chat.
Pleasure. Thank you. Excellent. I'm going to send all the data to you guys. You can do the arguing online for me.
Fantastic.
Oh, I know how to do that. Don't you worry.
Trevor, take it on. Don't worry.
Good on you, Emma. Great to talk to you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Emma Sutcliffe. EVFireSafe.com is her website. Wow. I got to tell you,
That was great chat.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And
Like,
yeah,
man.
it is. But
And I
as
know
she said, it's some malicious
exactly who she's talking about on
misinformation.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And he's making a bucket ton of money.
Yeah.
And I respect the fact that he's worked the algorithm to find so much money, but it's disinformation when you are explicitly
Fake
doing
news.
a video about EV and not giving the facts.
Yeah.
And that's like, this is someone, like, I'm sure she's going to make money out of this because it's a job, but
Yeah.
this is someone who's a firefighter who's just
exactly.
gone, I need to help my industry learn and train on
And
this.
she's done
And
that.
in doing that, we've uncovered all this data. 8 fires.
Yeah.
8 fires.
Yeah. And what about
Brilliant.
the 600 globally since 2010?
Yeah.
So 14,
And as you
15
said, there may be
years.
more, but I think if there was 10,000 more, we'd know
Yeah,
about it.
Exactly right.
We're dealing in the margins here, folks. Great stuff. Really
was good
respect that information, and we appreciate the time. More after this, including your calls. 0477 657 657.
You were rocking the mic like a rock star. Is that what they do, like on stage?
I don't know. I've never rocked a mic on stage.
Wow, it's like you was
Appreciate
watching
your
Pearl
support,
Jam
though.
or something up there.
We love talking EVs, and we love taking your calls on EVs as well. 0477 657 657. Send us a text. We'll line you up and have a chat on the show. I think it's the most important part of the show because I think it, differentiates what other people are doing on other podcasts or websites, because these are real people with real EVs that they want to share their experiences on, good or bad.
Yep.
Mostly good, well, let's be honest, but everyone has something. You just dig a little bit deeper, they'll tell you the little thing that niggles them. But also if you're in the market. And our next caller is in the market. Jeremy's on the line. In the market for an EV, Jeremy.
Yes, I've been thinking about an EV for quite a while. Years ago, I went for a little drive in the little BMW, you know, the i3, I think it was called.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, went for a little drive in that. And then about 2 years ago, when my Hilux blew up,
Oh,
I went for a test drive in the Model 3.
Mate, let's be clear. Petrol engines don't blow up, mate. So that's just stop spreading myths, okay? Petrol and diesel cars are very reliable.
he pushed it to the limit by the
Yeah,
sounds of it.
unbreakable.
I
So you
thought
didn't buy
the
one, though.
Hilux were like,
Yeah.
You
no,
drove one.
You're still in the market, but you got
I'm
some
still in the
questions,
market.
haven't you?
Yeah, we're just about to move into a house because we're living in an apartment. We're going to move into a house, so I want to go the whole way. I want to get solar on the roof. I want to get my EV car. And since listening to you blokes, I don't need a battery in the garage, do I? I'm going to use the car.
Mate, in theory,
in the near future,
and
that's for sure, yeah.
I've said that for a while now. I've said that for a year since I've owned my EV, but I feel a little bit more confident about that after speaking to the godfather of charging, Tim Washington.
Yep.
Yes,
By the way,
yes.
that got back to him as well.
Did it?
Yeah, because I said that to him on the
Well,
podcast,
right.
but then one of our listeners met with him at a business meeting and mentioned, I call him the godfather of charging. I think he was quite chuffed by that. But anyway, so the vehicle to grid things are really, a vehicle to home thing is a really important thing because there are cars that will not simply support it. And now what I did was rely on not manufacturer websites that, you know, these with mobile phones, our normal game, there's websites like GSM Arena where they list every single phone and every single spec. There's some websites, if you Google a specific model and say, you know, specifications, you'll find there's websites that list everything about every EV. And some of them will break out its vehicle to load, vehicle to home, vehicle to grid capability and tell you whether it's a yes or a no. And I think from Tim Washington, what I learned was even if it says yes, it may be enabled only with a software upgrade. I worry, though, Jeremy, that your dealer won't know. Well, let's be real. It's new technology. And if you go to a Kia dealer and say, mate, can this thing do vehicle to grid? He's going to go, mate, I don't know.
I'll get back to you.
He'll say it's got a PowerPoint in the boot. Is that enough?
Yeah.
And so you will need to be informed yourself, unfortunately.
Am I correct? Was there discussion about the government making all electric cars that come into Australia, they have to be compliant with vehicle to grid and vehicle to home or not?
I didn't hear it that way, no.
I never heard it that way.
No?
But
Okay.
It's more about the government needs to
it's
regulate
an expectation, I think.
and sign off on the technology before it can be used.
And so vehicle, you've heard
okay.
vehicle to load is you being able to power a product from the car, and vehicle to home, vehicle to grid is your car then powering your house and putting
Yes.
power back into the grid.
Okay.
But I think what we expect is in the next couple of years that'll be almost a selling point for EVs in the near future. So that'll be more a top line feature rather than buried in the specs. That's going to be a selling point of the EVs in the near future.
Are you leaning? Are you leaning towards the Tesla?
No, to tell you the truth, this CarPlay stuff has got me has got me annoyed. Yeah.
Well, mate, as a former Tesla driver myself, I spent 5 years driving a Tesla, and I never experienced CarPlay until I got my current vehicle. I think your question was, can you still enjoy apps from
Phone?
Apple?
Yeah.
So yes, they have. I think even before I sold my Tesla a year and a half ago now, they did introduce Apple Music as a native app in the system, so you can just log into your account like you would Spotify. There is I relied heavily on Bluetooth, so my phone I could still stream podcasts and my music and everything like that.
So you can buy a Mazda that has no CarPlay from 5 years ago, and it's got Bluetooth, and you could pair your phone and use a radio station app or any other app and play music. So yes, you can get the output of your phone, but you can't get, for example, if you love Waze like I do, you definitely can't show your Waze mapping on your screen. You must use the maps that are built into the Tesla, which, by the way, are exceptional.
Yeah,
they're some of the best on the market.
Google Maps, and you get a lot of
so
they're updated constantly. Yeah.
Is that the biggest negative then, that you just have to use the Tesla mapping system?
No, the Tesla mapping system is
for me.
excellent. It is pretty good.
Good.
The beauty of the Tesla mapping system is that it's Google, it's updated regularly, and it's also it works beautifully when you're on a trip, and it'll direct you to all the charges. So it's all part of the system.
And this is Jeremy. This is a frustrating thing about all electric cars, other than Tesla. Tesla, being the oldest brand in this space, nailed the inbuilt map and its ability to tell you where to charge and how much to charge every time along a trip. I drove from Brisbane to Adelaide, and it told us where to stop every time, right? No other car. They've all got it. They've all got, like my Kia today told me there was an amp hole nearby. I was already there charging. But they don't properly route you through things, right? But that's only amazing when you want to charge. Joshua Dowling, who sat here in Stephen's chair while he was gallivanting around Europe, is as adamant that he wouldn't buy a Tesla only because of CarPlay, because he loves Waze. Yeah. Like I love Waze. Yeah. I will drive to I will drive to Stephen Phoenix and I'll use Waze, even though I know how to get there, because Waze will tell me if there's an accident, police accidents, traffic, far better than any Google Maps does. So for me, it's a deal breaker.
But that's not to say you can't put a little mount in your car and look at apps on your phone.
You just bought a Tesla. Who's putting a mount? You know.
But other cars are like I'm a CarPlay newbie. I've only had CarPlay for the past just over a year, and so
the first one in Australia. This bloke's only just got it.
How long's this been going on? I was thinking this is great.
So that's a real. And Tesla, by the way, doesn't support vehicle to home, vehicle to grid, and may or may not in the future. So because remember, Elon sells batteries. So
exactly right.
Of course, he wants to sell you a
What's the balance there?
Separate battery.
What have you said you're moving into a house? What have you looked at with regards to charging at home?
Nothing yet. Nothing at all. We're waiting
solar. You're going to do solar?
Yeah, I definitely want to go down the solar track, get solar on the roof. We just need to get into the house and settle down, and then I'll do all the research.
One of your questions to us on the text line, and we love your questions, folks. 0477 657 657 was actually I think in the EV bubble, so people that only write about EVs, people that do shows about EVs like we do, we can lose track of this very simple question. So I really appreciate you asking it. It was, can I charge my EV from a normal power point? Yes. And the answer is a resounding yes.
Yes, you can.
You absolutely can. And a lot of people don't have a wall box or a Tesla charger or anything at home. They've just got what we call a granny charger. And they call that because they're slow.
Which comes with the car. So
some cars.
Yeah, most cars, you
Not
get
all cars.
a cable that connects to the charging port on the car and has a normal power point on the other end.
And
So-
you can plug it in
Okay.
anywhere.
And
Now,
that-
you should not plug it into an extension cord and a power board and all that,
Yeah,
but I'll
plug
tell
it
you,
in direct.
it does work. You can do it.
But it's just slow. It's all. You're gonna. It's more. You'll get what is it like 10 k's an hour every couple of hours. It's really
yeah,
slow charge.
it's-
So it's an overnight thing to sort of maybe get 20, 30 k's back on the battery, depending on the car, of course.
If you've driven 50 or 60 k's in the day, and you plug it in when you get home, your car's sitting in the driveway or the garage for 8 to 12 hours probably, you'll get all that
You'll get
back.
all that back overnight.
Easy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good.
So
that's good.
we know a lot of listeners who've called us. We've spoken to them on air, on the show, and they get by with just the granny charger. If you wanted to go, if you wanted to install a wall charger, then I think another question of yours was your 3-phase power. 3-phase, obviously higher voltage.
What's that mean? Yeah.
So higher voltage you can output in the home.
Oh, right.
So you'll be able to get up to, I think, 22, 30 or 32 kilowatt. Is it 32?
There's no cars that do that.
It depends on the charger and also depends on the car. Like, idiot me, I got a wall box because after I sold my Tesla, I had to, my Tesla charger wouldn't work without the Tesla, right? So I gave that away with the car. I bought a wall box and rewired everything thinking I've got 3-phase power. I'm going to get 32 kilowatts of charging on the car. Unfortunately, at the lower end, my vehicle only does 11 kilowatts at home, which means in 2 hours I might get back to half my battery full. So, but when I'm on the road, I can do 150 kilowatts and higher.
I've got the same. I've got 3-phase power into my wall box. I could theoretically do 22, 32, but there's no car that does that. Only the Porsche Taycan, I think, can do 20.
The Model S does it. The Model S has faster charging.
Yeah, but we don't have Model S's, mate.
I know, but before I used to be able to do 24 at home.
So just for relativity, 11 at home is great. 1 is what you get on the trickle charger, on the granny charger. But, mate, if you're not driving a lot, it's not an issue.
It's just topping
Plug
up
in,
what
go.
you use.
No. That's perfect.
Mate,
Yeah.
Outside of the Tesla, what has taken your interest just finally?
I like the look of the Polestar.
Yeah, good-looking car.
And at the moment, we only have one car. It's a Mazda CX-5. So that's the size of the car we'd like.
Yeah, Cat 03.
Or a Kia.
I tend to fill up the car with junk and push bikes and things, so I need a bit of space.
Mm-hmm.
Get an EV9 like Trevor.
Well, yeah, it's a bit bigger
Massive
than a
car.
CX. Did you say CX-5 or CX-9?
Yeah, no, 5. Yeah,
Yeah, so
five.
CX-5, mate. I'd definitely go and have a look at the new EV5.
Yeah,
the Kia
it's
dealer.
about the same size.
There's
as
a
your car.
smaller one coming out, the EV3.
Yeah,
I'd go and look at the BYD Atto 3.
Yep.
Which is extremely popular and well regarded. Polestar's not going to be amazing because of its form factor at the back, but it is a hatch form factor, so it might be okay.
But if you're putting a lot of junk in your car, you need like an SUV style car, don't you? If you want to put bikes and stuff in the back of it, you were saying?
Bicycles, I'm a bit of a bicycle nut. I got lots of bicycles.
Yeah, you need an SUV.
Is your wife okay with that? Sounds like your little secret.
I got hauled over to Coles last week because of the chip on the back of the Mazda.
Mate, how about a bike rack? You can put a bike rack on the back of the car.
Of course I would. Yeah. Exactly right.
Jeremy, I look forward to following your journey, my man.
Get back in touch with us when you've pulled the trigger, mate. We want to see what you've done.
And never hesitate to get in touch with any more questions, mate.
Thank you very much for your advice. It's fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to getting my EV.
Good on you, mate. Thanks so much for getting in touch. We appreciate it. 0477 657 657. If you want to get in touch, if you've got questions like Jeremy, see, that's the perfect person there. They're on the journey, you know.
Listener / caller, because we're here to inform, aren't we? We want you, and the questions he had were valid questions that we hear a lot, and we hopefully answer them clearly for him. He's got a better idea now.
We'll be back again next week with another episode of Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars. On the road this time, we're taking a special trip.
Oh, yeah.
Talking electric cars, I need to analyse some of the timings around the trip as to when we can record and when we can talk about stuff. So there's embargoes involved, but we'll be travelling as guests of BMW next week to the United States, and we look forward to seeing everything they've got coming with electric cars, Stephen. I look forward to travelling with you, my friend. See you stateside. I can't wait. All right, we'll be back next week. Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars.